Hello, everybody, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I need to have some kind of a shout or theme song here, but welcome to How to Get Hired. This is a Q&A, so if you see my beautiful face, there should be a chat box right next to it. Get in the chat, ask me some questions, anything on job interviews, jobs, careers, networking, resumes, anything. That's what I'm here to help people with. I'll try and help you if I can. And while we're waiting for the first questions to come in, check out my courses. I got 2 courses, Get Hired and $100 MBA course. Check them out. $100 MBA course is for how to learn business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, something like that. And how to get hired is if you are trying to find a job and you don't know how to go about doing it, or you have ambitions to sort of climb the ladder, you don't know how that's done, or you want to get into networking, stuff like that. Links in description box under this video if you want to learn more. I need a catchphrase for this live stream. And I was saying earlier, the best I could come up with was, "Are you on glue?" That's the best thing I could come up with. So if you think of an amazing, kick-ass catchphrase, let me know in the chat, and I will give it all due consideration. A catchphrase and a gimmick. What would be my gimmick? I mean, you don't think this background and this image is too conventional? Something that really sets me apart. We used to have a sports commentator, hockey commentator in Canada called Don Cherry. Some of you guys might have heard of him. And he was famous because he had the loudest suits you could ever imagine. The colors didn't just clash, they were waging all-out war. And that's what visually grabbed people and what made people remember this guy. And then you started listening to what he was saying, and he actually knew what he was talking about when it came to hockey. Unfortunately, he would talk about anything but hockey half the time, but that's what put him on the map. So I need some kind of gimmick. Just like Don Cherry, it'll totally work for me, just like it worked for him. Maybe if I wear a straw hat or something, I don't know. How many business people do you know that wear straw hats? A balaclava and a straw hat. That'll be the new thing. I can't hide my natural tendencies as a trendsetter, fashion icon. So, I mean, we could discuss my hair, to really kick things off. Anyway, thanks you so much for being here. There are 25 of you guys here. Get in the chat, ask me some questions. I will do my best to help. Kara Chen 86 is here. Hello again. Yes, Monday is my live stream day, and we were just talking on a previous live chat. Do I attach it? What are we talking about? It? Do I attach it to my resume on the same page, I guess? What are you referring to? I'm really a hiring manager, I swear. For my catchphrase. That's awesome. I'm totally a hiring manager. No, you trust me. Trust me on this. I'm so boring. White. I'm a hiring. Okay. I thought you were going somewhere else with that for a second, but yes. That's right. Something that really grabs you, something that hits you like a slap in the face, something like that. Something that when people hear it, they think you're insulting them for a second, and then you realize you're kind of insulting yourself, and then they realize, no, that's something else. There we go. That would be a perfect catchphrase if it has that effect. ZJ says, well, first of all, Kara Chan 86, get back to me on what you're referring to about attaching it to your resume, and I'll be happy to help. ZJ, see, I'm from Canada. I say ZJ. I don't say ZJ. That's an American thing. Okay? You got to put your hand over your heart and salute a flag if you're going to say something like that. ZJ says, what do you think about having a very wordy resume, specifically describing experience/work responsibilities? What's the balance between too many words and accurately describing your work history? The general rule is it should be 2 pages or less, okay? So depending on how much material you have to put on your resume, that's going to tell you how much you should cut it down. But a page and a half is typical. Up to 2 pages is fine. I would not go for more than 2 pages, okay? Remember, the ability to summarize and be brief is also a skill, right? So I don't care if you've got a 45-year career, you've worked across 10 industries, you've done all kinds of things, you still need a resume 2 pages or less, okay? So that should inform you how much to put in there. Now, there's different types of resumes. A couple of years ago, I did videos on sort of each type of resume and what you should include. For example, some people will include duties and responsibilities. Like under each of your items in your work experience, they will have duties and responsibilities, okay? So that's one thing you can have. Other things are accomplishments. You could say, you basically tell a mini story in a couple of sentences where you give an improvement in either percentage or money, like units, okay? That's an accomplishment. Okay, I did this, I came up with a new system, we managed to increase our efficiency at doing this by 14% in 1 year. Something like that. That's an accomplishment. Okay, so what I recommend is, like, especially if you're going for like, sort of upper level kind of thing, like a mid-manager position or something, if you're there, a good mix of duties and responsibilities, but also accomplishments. Don't do one or the other. Have a little bit of both. So whatever they're looking for, whatever strikes a chord with them, you have some of that on your resume. Okay, that would be my general recommendation. But don't go over 2 pages. If it's over 2 pages, for me, it would raise a red flag that you don't know how to summarize things properly. Okay? If you're going for some weird executive job, then okay, maybe more than 2 pages. But unless that's the case, 2 pages or less. It has to be able to fit on 2 pages. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Zed, yes, Zed. Kara-chan, so you said your cover letter. Do I attach it to my resume on the same page? Usually, they're two. Like if you're talking about printing this out, or you're putting it into a PDF or something, it's usually 2 separate pages. Okay, you get your cover letter and get your resume. However, these days, or at least in the last 5 years, your cover letter a lot of times is basically, unless they ask for specifically a cover letter, your cover letter is going to be sort of the email, that the body of the email that you're attaching your resume to. Okay, because the email will explain why you're sending your resume. You'll say something like, "Hello, I'm applying for this position. Please find my resume attached. If you have any additional questions, please let me know. Here's my contact information. I'm very excited about this position. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you." Something like that. Like that's really essentially what the cover letter does. It explains why you're applying, why, you think you're good. If you could even put in the body of the email, like, you say, "I'm applying for this position." And then you can summarize a couple of points in point form that say, "I have this, 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 and this. So it seems like I'm a fit. Please find my resume attached," et cetera, et cetera. So you can even pull out some of those. But the idea is it's brief, okay? And, most people will do it that way. If they've asked you for a separate cover letter, then you provide a separate cover letter. It's not on the same page as your resume. It'll be a separate document. Jason says, "Hi, I've been looking for jobs these past months and never really got lucky. And suddenly I've gotten an opportunity and they want to schedule an interview. But now I'm too scared because I don't feel prepared or qualified for the job." Okay, well, Jason, an animation job. Okay, so first of all, there are 2 possibilities here. Possibility A, or 1, is that they don't have a clue what they're doing, and they haven't read your resume properly, and you are not qualified for the job they're calling you for. Okay, that is always possible. What's far more likely is option B, or 2, where you are qualified for the job, they've read your resume, and based on the strength of your resume, they've invited you in for an interview, okay? Now, the way this stuff works is that if, according to your resume, you just don't have the technical qualifications to do the job, it makes absolutely no sense for them to waste their time bringing you in for an interview, okay? So the fact that they've called you in for a job, that tends to suggest that you are qualified for the job, okay? That's how this process works. They don't call in people for interviews and then find out in the interview if you're qualified. That's not how it works. They find out from your resume if you're qualified. The interview is then to see your personal traits, okay? What are your motivations? What are your communication skills? What's your professionalism? What are your ambitions? Is this anything you would be interested in doing? Would we be able to work with you? Would we be able to communicate with you properly? Are you super argumentative? Are you crazy? Are you a criminal? Like, have you lied about everything on your resume because when we ask you about it, you've never heard of it before? Like, that's what the interview is about, okay? It's not about assessing whether you're qualified or not. It's about assessing that, okay, now that you're qualified, would it make sense for us to get you to work here? Because as I've said before, I mean, you could be qualified for a job, but you have absolutely no interest in doing that job, okay? That's actually more common than you would think. Okay, so that's what the interview is about. So you've got imposter syndrome, it sounds like, okay? Don't worry about it. Everybody feels a little bit out of their comfort zone when you're going for a job interview. That's just how it goes. You're on their turf. You're playing by their rules. They're assessing you. It can be an uncomfortable kind of personal situation, or at least it feels like that. But the good news is that you are qualified for this job, or they wouldn't have called you in for an interview. It means they're considering you. Okay? And also, the reality is that we do better than we think we do in our mind. Okay? So if you go there and you feel like, oh, I bombed that, it wasn't as bad as you think it was. That's pretty much a universal reality. Okay? So don't worry about it. You're gonna do just fine. And don't feel like you're not qualified. Any job, when they give you the job and you start on your first day, it's confusing. You're not familiar with anything. You don't know how they do the work there. Every organization is different. So it takes you a little while, a little bit of a learning curve to learn how they do things and all this kind of stuff. But after you get over that, you'll be able to do the job no problem. Okay, so don't worry about that. People are talking, Keratin's talking to Jason. Yeah, like what both of you guys have been talking about, Jason and KaraChan86, is pretty typical stuff, okay? And there's nothing weird or unusual about it. You don't really have any specific reason that I've heard to really be nervous. It's going to go fine. So as I say, get in the chat. If you guys have questions about anything related to careers, jobs, job interviews, networking, resumes, let me know. I will try and help you to the best of my ability. Discovering jobs, that's also a big one. Getting jobs on the hidden job market, that's another big one. When people start out, we've been taught in the educational system traditionally that the way you get a job is you go look for job postings and then you respond to a job posting with some kind of application. That's what we're taught. And that is a way to get a job. However, what they don't usually teach is that that is not the most common way of getting a job. The most common way of getting a job is actually networking. Most people that have jobs now, if you ask them, how did you get your job? Was it through some form of networking or was it responding to a job ad? Most people will say that they got it through some form of networking. And I proved that 2 weeks ago or less when I asked that in one of the polls to all you guys, people that are subscribed to my YouTube channel. And sure enough, it was 75% of people for their last job that they got it through some kind of networking and not responding to a publicly posted job posting. So if this is surprising to you and you're unaware of this and you don't know, like, okay, well, how do I use networking? Look into it, okay? It's where the low-hanging fruit is. Usually it's also where the good jobs are because, think about it from the perspective of the employer or the hiring manager. If it's a desirable job, a lot of people would want that job. It's a good job. Why would you go to a lot of trouble of writing up, job descriptions, thinking up the requirements, getting that approved by multiple people, then paying to have it publicized? Okay, either you go to your own HR department and they do a whole bunch of work to publicize that, or you hire a third-party recruiting company, an HR company that does recruitment and selection to go, you pay them a fee for them to go post it publicly, and then you'd have to sort through the tons of applications you get, read the resumes, filter them, go through multiple rounds of job interview, right? And do background checks and all this kind of stuff. Like all this takes time and costs money. Why would you do all of that when, alternatively, you could just tell a few people that you work with, we're probably going to hire a new person for this position. And because this is a highly desirable job, they may know someone already, or you may know someone already that would be qualified to do it. And you can also give them a personal recommendation. They're not crazy. They're not untrustworthy. They're professional, and they know their stuff, and that you've worked with them before and they're a pleasure to deal with. Why would you not go with them for a tiny fraction of the effort and you still get a very, very good result, and it's not very risky, right? So think about that. That's the logic behind it. And this is what we see. I mean, I've done this. You don't post it publicly unless you come up short in doing it through networking. There are some minor exceptions, like in government, they have to post a lot of things publicly. But even then, a lot of times that's just for appearances, and the person they end up hiring is actually someone that they had their mind on before they even did their job search campaign, right? So if any part of this is new for you or it's surprising, don't take my word for any of this. Do your own independent research. You'll see that this is true, and learn about how to get a job through networking, okay? And even if you're an introvert, this is very possible to do. I mean, for example, in this course, I talk about something in great detail that I've mentioned on my channel a few times in videos, and that's how introverts can do this with tools like LinkedIn and Google Maps, how you can reach out to the people in your profession, and put yourself forward as a candidate for these things. So we can also talk about any of that if people are interested. Okay. Where did I leave off here? Okay, we talked about Jason, right? Okay. And Karachan 86. Okay. Beck A says, "Hi, Bill. Salary negotiation failure. What would you say for getting a salary raise by the end of the year? How to approach this issue in the end of the year? Bringing up topic, asking raise, explaining, etc." Okay, so this is where you're not getting a new job. You're in a job. You're just wanting to raise, okay? So you're asking for something. Okay, so here's the situation. First of all, the employer, I don't know the situation. You don't know the situation. Their hands could be tied. It may not be possible. Okay. So just always have that in the back of your mind. And they may want to pay you more, but it's not that they don't want to, it's that they can't. Okay. Usually, depending on where you work and how it's structured, they'll have a budget, and, maybe just they don't have enough money in the budget to give people raises. Now, let's pretend that that's not the case. Okay. You are basically asking for something that's optional. From their perspective, they're thinking, okay, you're here, you're working, you're staying, but you would like more. Now, a principle that goes across the board is every single person out there who has a job, they feel they deserve more. Every single person. Your boss feels they deserve more for what they do. You feel you deserve more. everyone you work with feels they deserve more. Okay. So that's a reality. So everybody feels that way. Now, one of the things your boss has to do is they have to separate just people saying, I would like more money, from the situations where you need to pay that person more money or they're going to walk, or the quality of their work is going to decrease because they're disgruntled or something. Okay. They would love to just pay people more. Every boss would love to have a budget big enough that you can just pay your subordinates really well, because well-paid subordinates are enthusiastic. They don't leave. They want to do a good job. They want to work well for you. Okay. So you want your subordinates to be well paid. Okay. The issue is that there's forces pushing back that make it so that it's hard for them to just give people raises whenever they feel like it. So where I'm going with this is that you usually have to force their hand. Okay. Because if you say, like, I feel I deserve more, can you give me some more? Most of the time, they're not going to say, sure, here you go. Okay. You have to try to force their hand. And sometimes when you do, you discover that it's just not possible for them to accommodate you. Okay. Now, the way you do this, the way you get negotiating power, okay, is by having other options. And I did a short video on this like a week ago or something. Okay, so if you only have two options, your option is to stay here and take whatever they choose to pay you, or you can quit and be unemployed. Okay, those are your only two options, option A and option B. There are no other options. And you don't want to be unemployed. That's not really a viable option for you. Then you have no choice but to stay and take whatever they give you. Whatever they offer you, you have to take it, okay? You have no power in that situation. So the way you have power is you need to be able to say, no, unacceptable, right? I will not take that deal. In order to be able to do that, you have to have something else lined up, okay? So, I mean, at the end of the day, you can make all kinds of compelling arguments to try and persuade them that they should give you more money because what you're asking for is reasonable, right? You can make all those arguments and try and persuade them, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what argument you use. What matters is what they can do. And if they say, like, look, sorry, I'd like to, but I can't, whether or not that's true, you have no choice but to take it. So the answer is to go out and make other things happen. Get other job interviews lined up, get other opportunities lined up, look for freelance work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you have those, you can come back and negotiate from a position of power and say, look, I would like a raise. I would like this much more. Okay. And then if they say no, you could say, okay, then here's my 2 weeks notice. And what will happen a lot of times is if they're bluffing, you're calling their bluff. Now, depending on your situation, usually this is not what a boss wants because it's disruptive. Number one, it costs them way more money to hire a new person and train them and get them up over the learning curve and tolerate the lack of productivity. It costs them way more money in the long run to do that than it is to just pay you a raise, okay? So they will want to accommodate you, but you're forcing their hand. They're not going to do it because you ask. They're only going to do it if they feel they have to and they believe they have to. Okay, so that's usually how these things go. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Gurpreet says, is there any recession? I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't pay attention to that stuff. Stuff goes up, stuff comes down. It's continual. Like most rich people don't, because that's just the fact of life. Most older people don't. Things go up, things go down, whatever. If you have a backup plan for whatever you're in, you're fine. Now, to your question, I don't think, I'm not really informed here, but I haven't really heard anything compelling. There's always people talking about recessions. It's like an alarmist kind of word. Whenever you want to make people afraid, whenever you want to get a certain thing, they sow fear. FUD, F-U-D, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? And all of a sudden, everybody's afraid and everybody's paying attention, right? So if that suits your agenda for whatever purpose, they'll press that button again and again and again, even when there's like nothing really going on. Now, I don't know if that's what's going on now, but I haven't heard anything obvious. The last time I checked, at least in my country, in Canada, I mean, we're at record low unemployment right now. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like a recession to me. The stock market, like the Dow and stuff, I occasionally check it. It's kind of leveled off, but it hasn't like dipped or anything the last time I checked. So I would say no, but I'm not like really with my finger on the pulse of that stuff every day. I know there was some fuss over the US debt ceiling. They always raise it. They only have one option, and that's to raise it. And they always do, but they always like to try and pretend that they're not going to or something. I don't know. So I know there was some fuss over that, but that's over now. So as far as I know. So anyway, yeah, I'm not an economist. So as you can tell, where did I leave off here? This feed keeps jumping on me. So I don't know how far it's moved. Let's see here. Here we go. So that was Kerpreet. So hopefully, I don't know if that was useful or not, but that's kind of my take on it. Kara-chan says, I have a job opportunity that I'm super nervous about. I've been at my kitchen job for 14 plus years. So hopefully you know how to make a souffle then. You know what you're doing after 14 years. So my tendency is to freeze and ignore. How do I get over that? Like freeze and ignore what? A job opportunity? Oh, like you freeze in the interview? Is that what you're saying? I don't know precisely what you mean. You add something here. Tips for networking for an introvert. Yeah, there's a ton of videos. Look, how can I do this here? I've done several videos. Like if you're an introvert, you want to network, you don't know how to do it. I've got some videos on my channel. Let's see if I can just pull it up here. It's not easy to do this. Sorry, everyone, if you just bear with me for a second here. Just on the fly. How would I do this? I don't remember the name of the video. That's the problem. I've done this a couple of times. Okay, basically, I have advocated, first of all, the full meal deal is in that course, by the way, the Get Hired course. There's a link in the description box under this video. That gives you the whole thing from beginning to end. So if you want to go that route, that's where I put all that stuff from beginning to end. I have talked about bits of it occasionally on my channel. Sorry, the name of the video escapes me at the moment. I've done it twice where I have using it, the video is like a screenshot of my desktop, and I walk you through how you discover jobs and then how you find the individuals, in those companies, and then how you connect with them. Just give me 20 seconds here just to see if I can pull this off. Yeah. I keep doing, the problem is that not a lot of people are tuned into getting a job that way. If you know it, you know it. But a lot of young people, they're not tuned into that stuff. And so they don't usually learn the stuff until later in their career, if they learn it at all. Here is, let's see if I got a screenshot here. Here's the video. This is the name of the video. Okay, so how successful people get jobs. That's what the thumbnail looks like. Okay, it's like a wonderfully flattering picture of me. And as you can see, it's like a sort of screenshot, and I'm walking you through how you discover, because the first thing is to know who to network with, right? Forget about how to contact them and what to say. First, you got to know who's my target. How do I find out who these people are and where they are, right? Okay, so that's in this video. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. Okay, so check that out. It doesn't have a lot of views. It's only got 5.8 thousand views on it. So, that kind of shows you not many people are kind of really tuned into this type of thing. But that's the secret to getting good jobs and also getting to management positions. The higher you climb in the org chart, those jobs increasingly, they're not posted and they don't go through recruiters. Okay. Despite what recruiters say, they don't. The decision makers are other executives, and it's all through networking. Okay. You don't have to have known these people already. The point is you reach out to them proactively. Right. Anyway, but check out that video. That'll give you, like, visually, graphically, you can see what I'm doing, and that should get you started at least. Okay, where did I leave off here? Did I skip over this question from Aunt Johnson? It says, tomorrow marks the 2-week mark since I had an interview with this particular company, and the president herself told me that they will come to a decision in a couple of weeks. Should I follow up again? Yes, of course. Why would you not? The way you do it is you just send a note. The best way to do it is in person, but most people don't do that. The second best way to do it is by phone. What you do is you call up, you get put through to the president, and you say, hello, this is whoever, we spoke last week. This was regarding this position. I was just following up to see if you guys had made a decision or if there's any update. Thank you very much. Have yourself a great day. Something like that. Because number one, you're following up, and number two, it signals that you're enthusiastic about it, and you have initiative, and you have professional communication skills. So all of those things work in your favor. You could send an email. Email is the easiest, or some kind of DM, but it's the least effective. It's it's the easiest thing to ignore. And the thing with the least human connection to people. Oh, Ann Johnson says, it will be my 3rd time following up. Well, look, if it's a really good job and you're really excited about it, go for it. Normally, the way I recommend people do stuff is you keep looking forward. Don't keep looking back. Don't wait. I'm going to stop my job search and I'm going to wait for the phone to ring to see if they're going to do what they said. The problem is, when people say, I'll get back to you, usually it means I won't get back to you. And recruiters in general are notorious for lying right to your face. And people in general will not give you honest feedback. And that applies to recruiters, hiring managers, or anyone. So when you put all that together, if the phone rings, great. But until that happens, keep moving forward. Keep looking for new opportunities, applying for jobs, doing informational interviews, reaching out to people at companies. Just keep moving forward. Keep generating those job opportunities or career opportunities of any kind. And your mental health will be better. You'll feel more confident. And it's just more productive. Okay, so that's what I have to say. Beck A says, how much percentage of raise asking after first year is okay? If one is doing more than required, how to tell it? Well, that's going to vary by industry, and that's going to vary by situation. It's also going to vary based on the economy. It's going to vary based on a ton of things, okay? Usually, a sort of ballpark idea is to look at the inflation rate and look at the annual cost of increase, okay? Other factors may include, if they've given you a sort of annual performance review, like sometimes companies will combine an annual performance review where they tell you how they think they're doing. They'll give you some feedback, with your annual raise or pay increase, something like that. Okay, so there's a lot of factors. I can't tell you how much it should be. It's going to depend on a million things. Farouk, Bill, who does your laundry? Your shirts are so white and crisp. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, hey, some people just got style, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It just comes natural. Not everybody can be as fashionable and as good looking as I am, and just have to accept the fact. As for me, it just comes naturally. No, I'm joking, of course. These are bespoke shirts, so they tend to look good. I'm actually quite cheap. I haven't bought any real fancy business clothes since I last was in an executive role. I really should go back and get some stuff, but quite frankly, I've been too lazy. And this was before COVID. So, but I get my shirts cleaned and my wife does my laundry. And between the two of them, it works out. I'm a regular person. I think you get to a certain status and you don't have to wear the same clothes more than once. You just sort of take them off and, they get taken away and then you never see them again. I don't know. Maybe it's possible to be so rich that you take your clothes off and then someone has them burned. I don't know. Maybe Elon Musk has that. We should ask him about it, see what he says. But thank you for noticing. Ant Johnson says, hello, Bill. Can you give us a brief summary of how you rose through the ranks in the corporate world? Well, I jumped industries a couple times. For me, that worked where I was because my hometown, and I've stayed in my hometown. A lot of people move around everywhere. I didn't. And the way I did it was I jumped industries because I started off in some industries where they put a lot of emphasis on seniority. And anyone who's been in that situation, it makes it hard for young people. It's like in order to get a promotion, you have to be there for 15 years or something. It's stupid. It was a throwback to how things were done maybe 100 years ago. And this was in the railroad. And I started off as a frontline manager in the railroad, so like a supervisor. I was supervising tradespeople. Some of them were like double my age. And, there was a company at the time that that was their policy. They hired like young people right out of university and put them into that role. And they exploited them a bit. They told them like, oh yeah, we pay you really well. Actually, they paid them terribly for what they did. And most people sort of didn't cut it. Most people left because it was a very tough kind of environment and all this kind of stuff. And I stuck it out a bit. But in order to rise through the ranks that way, you'd have to been there for like decades and decades. And I just was not into that. I had more education than some of the people around me and people above me. So it's like I was not interested in doing that. So I jumped around. And I think I did 4 levels where I like climbed and climbed simply by jumping to a different company. I did not stick around and wait for my number to be called because those weren't really done by ability. They were done, people were chosen for other reasons. How well you got along with your boss. The boss will promote somebody who's just like them and who's been around forever. And that last one, that makes sense. You've been through the ropes, but I felt that like it was too many years to wait because you'd learned everything that you'd learned in like a couple of years. If you stay in that role for more than 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're not really going to learn much more. So I wanted to move up. So I did that by jumping companies. Now, that worked for me. That does not work in every industry. That does not work in every location. Okay. So that's how I did it. But I had to move industries a couple times too to keep moving up. So for example, I went from the railroad to aerospace for a little bit, like, because, they're slightly related, like you're dealing with transportation and things like this. And then from Aerosmith, I went to Aerosmith. Yes, I was in Aerosmith. I was Joe Perry's roadie in Aerosmith. They're retiring this year, I heard. I thought they were dead already, but apparently they're still going and they're retiring. They're going on a farewell tour. So as you can see, that's how I really made it. But then from aerospace, I moved into a different industry, which was industrial, like power products, like motors, generators, transformers, electromagnetic sort of devices. So I mean, they're related. These industries are somewhat related, and there's some skills that sort of are common, but they're 2 separate industries. So that's how I managed to do that. And then I started my own company and had entrepreneurial experience. And then that allowed you to understand how to run a business, really. I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't done entrepreneurial ventures. So that was definitely a component of it. That's why I encourage people today to try entrepreneurial type ventures. Do it in a very controlled way where you don't really risk any money, just your time and effort. but it teaches you a ton. And that way, when you're working as a manager of a business operation, you can make much more informed decisions about what's going to be successful and what isn't. Okay. You really don't learn that by working as a tiny cog of a big machine. You really don't. Your decision-making ability is really out to lunch when it comes to, things like generating revenue and stuff like that. How would you know, if you've never really run, a profit center or something before? So anyway, I could go on forever, but hopefully that gives you some idea. I'm getting some weird questions. That's 2 questions in a row I've never been asked before. Shirts and a summary of my career. Karachan86. I guess my question is how to keep the job hunting momentum going when you aren't used to doing it, or do job enjoy the job hunting process? What? How to keep the momentum going if you aren't used to it or don't enjoy it. That's what I'm getting out of it. Look, figure out what's effective and figure out what you can tolerate doing, and then just keep doing those. Okay. There's many things you could do, but depending on your type of personality, you may not enjoy. It may be like pulling teeth. Okay. Doing some of those methods. So pick methods that you could do. Like if you're an introvert and you can't network physically with people, it's like pulling teeth. Don't do that. There's stuff you can do from your computer. You could set up meetings. Maybe you're not great at like networking or selling yourself, but maybe you're good at having a conversation with somebody. So if somebody invites you in and says, yes, come in, I've set up a meeting. Let's chat. Maybe you're good in those situations. And if you are, that's really all you need. Okay, so there are many different methods. Pick ones that are less unpleasant to you that you could sustain and just do a bunch of those. Okay, you got to be able to maintain some kind of interest in it and take care of your mental health, or else it's not sustainable. I'm sorry if that's self-evident, but that's kind of what I would say. I'm really falling behind. Jacob Tremble says, I had a phone interview and it went well. The interview went so well that the interviewer gave me a second interview on the phone. The interviewer told me to send 2 reference letters. Okay. Oh, it continues. So the interviewer told me that it will be 2 weeks to interview other candidates. Don't you love that? When they talk to you about them interviewing other people, that's all. That makes you feel wonderful, doesn't it? It's that level of interpersonal skills that a lot of these recruiters have. Then they will get back to me. I didn't hear anything, so I called them. And it continues. The interviewer told me they have pushed the interview process 2 weeks more, still looking for other jobs, but really want this one. What is your advice on the job that I got interviewed on? Look, I'll be honest with you. It sounds like it's not happening. At least it's not going anywhere fast. Okay. Now, look, these people will never be honest with you. If it's not happening, it seems they seem completely incapable of saying, look, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, it's just not happening. I wish it was, but it just isn't. I wish you the best of luck. If anything else comes up, I will let you know. They seem to be incapable of doing that, okay? Some of them, there may be valid reasons for that. Other ones, there just isn't, and they're idiots, okay? So regardless of what's actually going on, maybe they're doing some weird internal thing when they're all in confusion, I don't know. Or maybe they just don't have the guts to tell you, look, sorry, it's just not happening. But either way, you have no control over that. The only thing you have control over is you move forward, you generate more opportunities, and if the phone rings, great. If it doesn't, keep moving forward. It'll be better for your mental health. It'll make you feel more confident because you've got other things lined up. Okay, so you're not totally dependent on this one thing happening. Okay, and obviously it's got intrinsic value. The more opportunities you pursue, the better the chances that something will work. Okay, and quicker. So that's what I would say about that. Don't worry, Jason. It's Jacob. It's going to happen. Okay, the more work you put in, the more opportunities you pursue, the quicker it will happen. And sometimes these things are blessing in disguise. If this doesn't end up working, a lot of times they are blessings in disguise. Something better comes along afterwards, and you won't even regret this at all. Okay, Beck A. Did I read this already? Continuing my topic, had to ask promotion for a fresh worker. What? Oh, how to ask promotion for a fresh worker if the one feels he does sales job even though he's customer rep. Should it be addressed when probation ends or the year? Sorry, Beck A, you really lost me on that one. If you could rephrase it a bit clearer, I'd be happy to help you on it. Yeah, I agree with you, Aunt Johnson, on the updating candidates. Zaid, is that how you say that? Zaid, I've been sick for the past year after graduating. Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. What do I tell recruiters if they ask me, what have you done for the past years? I'm applying for back-end developer jobs, so do I tell them I was sick? Listen, in my opinion, there's no harm in telling them, look, like, I was sick, I had, a one-time only condition, I was in the hospital, whatever. It's nothing that is going to come up again. It was a one-time only thing. It's all over. It's in the past. I'm fit for work. But that's where I was for that year. Okay? For something where you've been off for a year, it's kind of hard to hide it. And if you don't disclose what was going on, it raises a lot of uncertainty and red flags for them. So I would just bite the bullet and explain. You don't have to go into great detail. But the key thing that they'll be going through their minds is, if you were sick before, does this mean that you're likely to get sick again? They don't want to hire you and then have you go off for another year, okay? Especially if they have to pay insurance and benefits and all this. So if it's a one-time only thing, I would say that. It was like, I don't know if it was COVID or whatever, or some other health issue, but it's nothing to do with something that could happen again. It was a one-time only. I was injured or whatever, and I just needed a year to recover. Never had that happen to me before. Never will happen again. That's what I would say. That's just me. Caro Chans, Elon probably burns his clothes for you. Yeah, I'm sure he does. Actually, he probably has a team of servants to do it for him, but, whatever. Each to their own. a team of servants to kick, and then they burn his clothes for him. And then say thank you. Jacob Tremble says, okay, I already did that one, I think, right? Jules says, hi, Bill. Hi, Jules. I have had many interviews, and at last 3 jobs have gone through the reference process, and I trust the references. What should I do? About what? Like, is it an issue giving out the references or something? I've had many interviews, and at least 3 jobs have gone through the reference process, and I trust the references. What should I do? Nothing. It sounds like it's going fine. If you could clarify if there was something else I'm just not understanding. Ron says, I'm a COS. What's a COS? Being laid off from Disney, okay? After 18 months. The challenge is a huge influx of internal resumes for limited positions. I follow your channel, but struggle to get in front of managers. Okay, was there any more to that? That's the thing. Okay, here's the deal. How can I put this? See, that's getting a job through standard channels, what I call standard channels. That's when they post a job, people see it, people apply with an application, reply with an application of some kind, and that goes through standard channels. Like they want you to send it to a recruiter or send it, online through their website, so the applicant tracking software can filter it, or whatever. The problem with this is you're describing basically a problem in varying degrees with all posted jobs, and that is that they want to funnel through everybody through this level playing field where they put every candidate side by side and want to find the best person. Now, if you are clearly, obviously, a person who stands out in a crowd of 1,000 people as being the best person, you can play this game and win. Okay? However, if you're more average, you're an average typical person who doesn't stand out in a crowd of 1,000 people as being clearly the best or clearly in the top 1 percentile, then this process doesn't really work for you that much, okay? It means you have to apply for lots and lots of jobs using this method for it to eventually work out, okay? And it's basically just statistical probability, luck of the draw, right? The way to short circuit this situation is to not play by these rules, okay? And the way you do that is by going through some form of networking. You get hired because you're the first one to show up. You get hired because you're the only one that showed up in person and expressed an interest before they had posted anything, okay? You get selected because they've already had a conversation with you. They've already met you, and they already know that you're amiable, you're professional, you're a pleasure to deal with, you got great communication skills, you're passionate about this type of work. They already know that. All the other candidates are resumes that they haven't met yet, okay? So that's how you win in this type of situation. You don't go in with all the other cattle and hope that they pick you out of this crowd, okay? Instead, you go outside the system, outside the rules. That's what networking is, you know? And you get selected because you're the only one that showed up. You're the only one that was proactive enough to go and meet one of these people and say, I'm interested in this. And, you know, talk to them about that. And they see that you make them feel good. You're asking intelligent questions and they like you, right? So think in those terms. That's the world of networking. Now, I can't summarize the whole thing here. There's so much to it. But do your own research in that direction on how to do that stuff. I got some videos, but there's many other resources out there to help you learn that stuff, okay? On the other side of the fence, you've got hiring managers that need to pick someone for a job, okay? They need to fill these positions. Some of them are, like, quite frankly, not very desirable jobs. They're just, hiring. You just need a warm body, but you need someone who's going to show up and someone that you could deal with, right? Other positions, they require someone that has some brains and some abilities and some passion, and they have a desire to do the job, and you need to interact with this boss and have it go well. Your boss doesn't want to argue with people all day long. They don't want to argue with their subordinates. They just want to say, I need you to do this. And the subordinate says, you got it. Right? So it has to be a little bit more selective for those. Now, all those things that you need, you can tell by meeting somebody, seeing what they're like. Do I click with them? Do they get along? Do they have the right attitude? Are there any obvious red flags about them? Are they interested in this kind of work? If I hire them, will I enjoy dealing with them? Will they stick around? They can tell that stuff from you by interacting with you. So it's not that you're more talented than anyone else. It's not that you're more capable. It's just that you've taken the trouble and the initiative to do this kind of activity. And you make it easy for them to select you. Because now all they have to do is, after you've met them and you've given them a business card or something, and they like dealing with you, all they have to do is call the number on the card and say, hey, I got a position. You want to come in and interview for it? And unless you blow it, they'll give it to you. Okay? So that's generally how these things work. Okay? So do your own research in that direction. Learn those skills, and you will come out on top. No matter what the economic situation is, no matter what else is going on, you will come out on top. Hopefully that makes sense. Alphonse. Can I call you Alfonso? I know that's not your name, but I'd like to call you that anyway. Hi, Bill. I am enjoying your presentation. I tried to apply for a job online, and one of the mandatory fields was for permission to contact my current employer. I stopped it there. What is your opinion? Yeah, that's common because usually, obviously, to state the obvious, if you're applying for a job and you're currently employed, in most cases, you don't want your current employer to realize that you're actively trying to leave, right? That can be bad for you. once they discover this, it's best for them if they terminate you and hire a replacement, right? Because now they're in control of you leaving, and you don't just leave them high and dry where it's a sudden shock. It's happened. They've had no control over it. And now it's even more disruptive for them, right? So your situation is a very common situation. You don't want to inform your current employer that you're leaving. So most people would have an issue with that. Okay. Now, I'm reading into what you said that they require you to allow them to contact your current employer. Is that what you're saying? You stopped it there, but did they was it mandatory that they need to be able to do that? If so, they're really limiting the amount of people that apply for that job. Maybe that's intentional, but they will tend to, like I don't know. I mean, usually people, even if you're happily employed, you usually don't want to let your current boss know that you're wanting to leave. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure what the purpose of asking people that is and making it a requirement, because most people will say no, right? So all I would say is, if you were here 5 minutes ago where I was giving the explanation about getting a job through networking, if you were here for that, everything I said to the last person, to Ron, applies to you too, Alphonse. That's the way to get better jobs. When companies are like, doing this to you, making you go through this process where they have to be able to contact your current employer. I mean, quite frankly, that's stupid. It really is. I don't know what they're trying to do with that. So if those are the only kind of jobs that you're seeing that apply, learn about networking. It opens up a whole universe of other good jobs that are there that you're just not seeing. Okay. Beck A says, thanks to you, I'm not currently interested in job hunting. Okay. Hopefully that's good. Or please Q&A the videos for team building, salary raise, corporate issues. There are too few videos about these. QA, what does that mean? Like question and answer? Ron Muller, COS, is chief of staff. Okay. Yeah, see, that's an industry term. Not all industries use that term. In fact, most don't. Thank you for your help, Ziad. You're welcome, Ziad. Jules, my references are being called too many times, at least 3. Oh, I see. Okay, so they're kind of pestering your references. Yeah. I don't know if there's a way around that one other than to have many references and maybe alternate the ones that you give out. So if you have, let's pretend they required 3 references. Well, talk to 6 people that you'd want for references. For one job, give out the first 3. For another job, give out the second 3. I don't know if that's an option for you. That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. Like, sometimes you can get away with, instead of providing your boss as the reference, you could provide a coworker or even your boss's boss. So these may be suitable alternatives. So they're not always pestering the same people for every job you apply for. That's the only thing I can think of, other than what I've said about networking. Networking, it solves all these problems in one fell swoop usually. People don't need references really that much because they've met you. They've made a personal determination upon seeing what you're like when you don't have a vested interest. It's not like a job interview where you're trying to perhaps artificially sell yourself because you're hoping to get something out of it. In networking, you're dealing with people where there isn't a job at the end of it. So you're behaving much more naturally. And, if they get along with you in that situation, they know that, you're not just trying to ingratiate yourself, you're being genuine. And if they liked you, that's a really strong testament. References are less important in those situations. How are we doing here? Moises, is that how you said? Moises, hi Bill. Hello from Mexico. I think you were here. Were you here before? I recognize that. I was recently laid off. Oh, I'm sorry. I worked 20 plus years from one industry, logistics, and I would like to change to another industry. What do you suggest me? Oh, here we go again. This is like very one-sided, this discussion, because once again, the answer is networking. You see, the problem is that if you're changing industries, and I know what I'm talking about here, I've changed industries myself a few times. If you go through recruiters, what do recruiters always care about? They care about years of experience, okay? Now, a problem with changing careers or changing industries is that depending on precisely what the subject matter is, if they ask you, how many years of experience do you have in this role that you're applying for? If you're changing industries, the answer is going to be 0, right? Because all your work experience was in a different industry. So when a recruiter hears, oh, you've got 0 years experience in this role or in this industry, that's pretty much a deal breaker a lot of the time, right? So this is the problem that we encounter when changing careers or changing industries. So that's why, once again, the solution is some form of networking. They meet you, they see that you know your stuff. You're not talking to a recruiter, you're talking to a hiring manager, and the hiring manager can see firsthand, you're awesome to deal with, you're professional, you know your stuff. You're asking very intelligent questions, you're saying very intelligent things. They can tell you're an authority in this area. So they know that if they were to hire you and put you in a certain position, you wouldn't have, it really doesn't seem like you'd have any issues grappling with that subject matter because you know your stuff. Okay. So that's where talking to a hiring manager in, say, like an informational interview or something, that's superior to talking to a recruiter when you're changing careers, because recruiters, I mean, you can be like a CEO of something and they'll say, sorry, you're not qualified to do this forklift job because I don't see any experience on your resume about you driving a forklift. And the obvious answer is like, what, do you think I can't do it? I mean, I could learn that in an hour, I could be driving a forklift. I mean, like, hello, this is really not that challenging in the grand scheme of things. But they're like, nope, you haven't done it before, so you can't possibly do it. So sorry, no dice. I mean, it's silly, but that's how recruiters are taught. And I know because I taught recruiters, I know how they're taught. So that's what you're up against. So usually when people change careers, they don't talk to recruiters. They talk to a hiring manager of some kind directly in advance. Not in a job interview type situation, but another situation, like some informational interview type situation. You can contact someone and say, like, look, I'm thinking of changing careers. I don't know if it's right for me. Would I be able to ask you a couple of questions about your industry? Maybe just half an hour of your time. Would that be okay? I'm very interested in getting your expert opinion. A lot of people will say, yes, sure, I can help you out. You're not going there because you're asking for a job. You're going there just give me some information, please, And in the course of that, if they see that you're awesome and you get along really well, and then let's pretend afterwards something does come up, there's an opportunity right there. Okay. Oh, this thing jumped on me again. Where did I leave off? Oh, yeah. It's Moises. So I don't know. In your situation, if you're doing logistics for one industry, but then you shift over to doing logistics for a different industry, it's still logistics. Does that count as changing careers? Maybe not. But if people perceive it as changing careers, then you might have to go through networking rather than go through standard channels. I want to move to the automotive industry. Okay, well, so automotive, but not in logistics is the idea there. Like if you work in the warehouse in, a material, like an automotive material supply company or operation or something like that. I mean, it's still related to logistics, presumably, right? It's the same stuff. The part numbers have changed, right? Maybe the safety standards have changed, but it's basically the same stuff. So it depends on the specific circumstances. Maybe you could go through standard channels, it'll be fine. Otherwise, go the networking route. Daipen, you're welcome, Daipen. Thank you for being here. I've got about another 10 minutes here, so we have about 5 questions. Beck A says, sorry, I wanted to please make QA and videos for newly hired people. For youngsters, it is full of challenges. I thought getting a job is the only important thing, but it appeared it is not. Oh, you mean like you've gotten a job, now you've got to acclimatize to doing your job? Is that what you're saying? Like you're newly hired. Well, usually a lot of employers should take care of a lot of that. They should do an onboarding process. Like for example, when, for many years before I was a CEO, I was sort of an executive, and I personally onboarded all the new people that came. I had like a checklist of like 30 items, and you go over it. And then beyond that, you sort of match them with a buddy so that, beyond the sort of initial like orientation and, stuff, then they'd have someone to go to that they could ask questions, and they would be able to get some help from them. They're required to help them and make them make a smooth transition. So a lot of organizations should be doing that. Maybe they're not doing that anymore or something, or maybe not for where you're working. This is why I do the Q&A video live streams, because there's important stuff out there, but it's not so important that like everybody's searching for it. And I found in the past there's stuff I think is really important that people should know, but if they're not looking for it, then they don't watch the videos. It doesn't make any sense to make videos on it. So that's why I do the live streams, because then people can ask extra things that I don't normally cover, and it doesn't matter if it's just one person that's wondering. I'll speak to it if I can. Jacob says, hello, Bill. I have another job situation. I got an email from a recruiter 2 weeks ago. They said they wanted to schedule a time to talk. I did that and did not hear anything back. Well, welcome to job search, Jason. Unfortunately, that's a very, very typical thing. And I'd say, not in a condescending way, but I'd say get used to it, because that's kind of, how it goes. You put a lot of stuff out, and a lot of it goes into a void. People receive it, or maybe people acknowledge it. They say like, yes, thank you for sending your application. We'll get back to you. And then that's the last you ever hear, of them ever again. You go to an interview and they say, thank you for coming down to the interview. We'll get back to you. And then you never hear anything else, right? These are common. So don't take it personally. That's just how these people operate. Okay. If it works for them, they will be in touch. Okay. That's how these things work. Now, the flip side of this is that you can't take this kind of behavior, or even if it's a flat out rejection, you can't take it personally. You can't take it like it's a commentary on, what they're really saying is that you're no good or something. That's not what's going on. A lot of times they have a lot of people that apply for these jobs. They have a lot of people that interview for them. And, there are several people that they could have hired that, would all have been good. And a lot of times behind the scenes, when you have multiple decision makers, they'll be gunning for different candidates. There's like 3 or 4 decision makers, and each one picks a different candidate. They're pushing for them. And at the end, it just becomes like a roll of the dice or something, essentially, like figuratively, on who they pick. It's not a statement that, everyone else, like, oh, they were no good or they were inferior. You'd love to be able to hire everyone for the job, but you can't. You can only hire one person. You've talked to 20 people, or you've interacted with 20 people that are all really good. Unfortunately, you can only pick one. That's what it's like on the other end. Okay. So it's kind of a shame that they can't just be upfront about this when they communicate, but that's what you're going to be up against. So don't take it personally. The more opportunities you create and you pursue, the quicker this will work out. Okay. Just keep moving forward. Okay. And I know it's easier said than done, but don't feel really negative about the rejection. It's just that they can't hire everyone that they want to hire. It's just that simple. Okay, I've got about another 5 minutes here. I'm going to see if I can finish this. Hello, Bill. I have another job situation. I got an email did not hear anything. What is your advice? Okay, I already did that one. Dippin says, I graduated with a bachelor in computer science. I worked as a software engineer for 3 years. Then I worked as a hotel manager for 4 years. Now I'm looking for software jobs. Should I include my hotel job? No, you shouldn't. Listen, it's a crapshoot. If you're dealing with recruiters, you wouldn't include your hotel experience, okay? Because the way they generally think is they look at your resume and they say, well, you're more of a hotel manager than you are a software engineer, right? Which is kind of insulting, but that's what they'll say. You know, and they'll say, well, you're not really suited for this job. You're suited more for hotel work, right? Which is also insulting. You know, I hate to always sound like a broken record, but networking. It also solves this problem, because if you have an informational interview, or you just broadcast yourself to people that would hire a software engineer, okay, so maybe CEOs of local software companies or whoever might need someone as a software engineer, like they've got a data center or they've got an IT department or whatever, right? You broadcast yourself, I've got this, I got that, I'm excited to work. What would be useful is that if you could say in the last 4 years, while you were working as a hotel manager, that you've taken some courses in coding or software development or computer science. If you can say that kind of satisfies another red flag, which is that, your skills are out of date, okay? If you're a recruiter, that's another thing that's going to go through your mind. Your skills are old. If you don't use them, you lose them. That's how these people think. So they're worried that, your skills are obsolete. Once again, insulting. That's not the case. But that's how these people think. And if you're trying to impress them, you have to address that. So the best thing to do is just take a couple of free online courses. And then if they ask you, like, what have you been doing the last 4 years? You could say, well, I've been working as a hotel, to make ends meet. But I've also been brushing up on my software skills. I've taken several online courses. And so my skills are like right up to date right now. And I haven't been out of the game for 4 years. I'm very much, very fresh and with it, when it comes to this stuff. I've been doing it constantly. So that's not an issue. Okay, hopefully that helps. You're welcome, Moises. That's very nice of you. And same to Karo Chan 86. Kifu says, wow, nice, you're live. I just wanted to say I just watched episode 27. It was amazing. Well, thank you. I'm not very amazing in these things. I just, I really need to spice up my whole live stream thing instead of just rambling for hours and hours. I could have some dancers behind me. Should I do that? You have to kind of have like a light show, have some dancers, maybe some pyro. That'd be cool. Then we could talk business, right? You're welcome, Jason, or Jacob. I keep calling you Jason. Sorry, Jacob. And Doctor. There's a famous guy in World War II. Not a very nice guy, but a famous guy in World War II. He had 2 PhDs. They called him Doctor, and then whatever his name was. So if you get your second PhD, you should definitely do that. Thank you very much. You guys are awesome. I've got to get rolling. But I'm here every Monday for a series of these live streams talking about various things. The first one I do in the morning is about entrepreneurship, side hustles, that kind of thing. Second one, we talk about polls and business topics. And then this one is the Q&A for anything related to job search, interviewing, careers, networking, resumes, all that kind of stuff. So I'm here again next Monday doing all this stuff. Tune in again and ask me some questions, whatever you're struggling with, and I'll see if I can help you. Thanks so much. You guys are awesome. I wish you all the best, success in your endeavors, and take care.